like to have real conversations around here, and this is the realest, or one of them. We know that relationships play a big part in all of our lives, and happiness, whether family, friends, co-workers, our relationships have at their foundation, hopefully if it's a good one, trust, right? But what happens when that trust is broken and you are betrayed? It honestly hits like no other. I always tell people it's nothing like, really believing in someone or something and then have it be deceiving. Well, someone who is making headlines right now, today, in fact, because of her new book. The book is called Becoming Free Indeed, My Story of Disentangling Faith from Fear. Jinger Duggar Vuolo. She's here in a daytime exclusive. So in her book, Jinger opens up for the very first time about the family scandals and addresses what she calls the cult-like family rules that she is sharing for the first time. She now believes that there was betrayal of trust and faith that inspired her to find her new life. So for almost 20 years, I was on the Today Show. They were on all the time. The Duggar family, right? Jinger grew up as the sixth child in one of the largest and most famous families in reality TV. In 2008, Jinger Duggar Vuolo was just 14 years old when her supersized family skyrocketed to fame, captivating the attention of America in TLC's hit show 17 Kids and Counting. The show followed the lives of the Duggar family from Arkansas, how they functioned, they were religious, they homeschooled their children, and extraordinarily grew up and grew into an even bigger show, 19 Kids and Counting. Remember that one? But in 2015, TLC canceled the show after reports surfaced that the oldest son, Josh, had allegedly molested 5 girls, including 4 of his sisters, when he was a 14-year-old and a minor. He was never charged, and the family went on to a new TLC spinoff. That one was called Counting On, and that show was canceled in 2021 when Josh was arrested for child pornography. Last May, he was sentenced to more than 12 years in prison. Jinger is now 29. Jinger is now 29 and happily married. She's a mother of 2 daughters, and she says releasing this book is one of the hardest things she's ever done. Take a look.
While this is not the first book I've written, it has been by far the most challenging. The process has been more emotionally exhausting than I thought it would be, and it's been tough because it's so personal. And at times, I've wondered if I should even write it. But I know it's necessary, and I'm thankful God has given me the strength to finish it.
Joining the Tam Fam, a daytime exclusive, please welcome to our show, New York Times bestselling author Jinger Duggar Vuolo. Jinger. Welcome to the show. Becoming Free Indeed. Wow. I'm sitting here thinking, I thought a lot about you last night. As I said, we are live. I thought about you, and I thought about your little girls. You have 2 daughters now. You said this was the hardest thing you've written before. Were they front of mind, the words and what you were revealing, that they will one day read?
Yes. I think I always have in mind my younger self and walking back through the most challenging things I've walked through, and I want to be able to be strong enough to share this, even for my girls' sake, that one day, like you said, they will be able to read my story and see all that I've come through, and hopefully be inspired by that, but then also just helped that I know they probably will have a very different life than I had.
Speaking of that life, as I said, I remember the family coming on the Today Show and all of the fame and the celebrity that went on with this. You talk about going back to the pain, right? You talk about this obsession to be perfect, the pressure to be perfect, and your upbringing being a part of that, your ultra-conservative teachings from this minister, Bill Gothard. Describe to people, because we saw one version on TV, right? Behind the scenes, was it as strict as it appeared?
Yes. My family followed these teachings since before I was born. And so
you had to cover yourself.
Yes,
no
so
music.
You would have to do like all of these outward things to be pleasing to God. So yeah, no music with drums, modesty standards of wearing dresses only at all times. courtship instead of dating. It was very restrictive, and so inside our home, we didn't have cable TV, but we were on TV all of my upbringing. So it was just a very interesting dimension of my life because everything was being shown on TV. I was abiding by these rules. I was probably one of the most devout in that setting. And at the same time, I look back at that and I was like, wow, that's all I ever knew.
You know, it's interesting because, listen, the doctrine that was taught in your home, it's not unique. There are other faiths that say no music. There are other faiths that say women should cover up, and even in extreme ways. We know this. In your book, though, you talk about being paranoid and in fear of dishonoring God, and that this pressure came specifically from this minister, Bill Gothard, who taught your parents to practice these things. He also, though, in 2014 resigned after allegations that he sexually harassed and molested women who work for the organization, accusations he denies. He shared in a statement with ABC News saying, "I have joyfully spent my entire life serving young people and their families. If I sense that someone is resisting my words or action, I immediately back away. The thought of harassing someone is totally foreign to my nature. It would never have happened." You made no allegations toward him, but this climate that your family, your parents believe they should raise you in, you seem and your siblings seem to have been collateral damage to what these teachings were. How do you describe it?
It's interesting, Tamron. I think a lot of families were sucked into this in the early stages because Bill Gothard promised a guarantee for success for your family. If you follow his 7 principles, then your life will be a success. And if you don't, he said that your life would be one disaster after another. And so I grew up thinking that God was waiting to get me at any turn if I stepped outside of any small box. So I was like in a car, I'd be terrified. I was terrified at one point when somebody turned on music with drums. And I was like shaking because I thought, we're for sure gonna get in a car accident and die because he taught that. And so it's that type of fear-based teaching that just sends you into spirals of fear, anxiety, and just not knowing where to turn.
Which is so incredible. He's teaching these things. Your parents are believing these things, but yet you become billboards for this organization, this hugely successful show that he and others within that organization can say, see, they listen to us and they have this show and they're on everywhere.
Yeah.
Were your parents being used, in your view now, by these people?
I think that I'll let my parents speak for themselves as to their decisions. But for me personally, looking back at those years, I was wanting to promote those teachings because that was all I ever knew. I was in that world.
But you were a
thinking,
baby.
this is the answer to life's problems. Get this, that's what I was telling my friends. And I remember feeling like so scared when my friends started wearing pants because I thought, you're gonna destroy your life. That's what we're taught. Don't do that. And I wanted to promote these teachings because I thought that was the answer. It wasn't until I stepped outside of that world to see how damaging his teachings were, how fear-based and where it would lead you ultimately. And I think I started to question some of that whenever I met a couple people who were outside of that world.
It's interesting because I look back at a lot of your appearances. I was online last night and even thinking about when I saw the family, and you always, in hindsight, you look for signs when you know that someone is a survivor, and you are a survivor, in my view. I was like, is there something in our eyes? Are they looking at the camera, begging America to help them while they're in the throes of this? People started this Free Ginger campaign. Before there was Free Britney, folks were watching the show and they felt like they saw something or heard you signaling wanting to get out.
You know, that's interesting because I was in that setting and thought, okay, I knew that Free Ginger existed.
So you were aware that this...
I had heard about it. I hadn't actually gone and looked at it when I was younger because partially due to the restrictive nature of our setting. But it was interesting. I knew it existed and I thought, oh, how sad. Those people want me to be free of my life. They saw in me when I mentioned I would come visit New York a lot for shows and I would come out here and be like, oh, I would love to live in this city one day. It's awesome. But they saw that and thought, she definitely wants to get out. which wasn't true at that point. It's crazy. I didn't have any desire to get out because I was told not to question these teachings. Once you see that they thought they were in the Bible, don't question it, go along with it, and that's what's gonna bring you success. If you question it, it doesn't stand up for itself. It can't. So that's why you can't question the teachings. So I was so devout in that, and I look at the Free Ginger movement and I would say, I think they really just wanted what was best for me and they cared, and I appreciate that. I have landed maybe at a different conclusion than some people may have wanted me to, still holding on to my faith, but I've taken apart all of this error that was once what I followed and thought was gonna bring me favor with God, and I've set that aside and said, no, I don't need to follow a person except for Jesus.